is The Change Position, episode 148.
Take three.
Take three.
Hey, folks, welcome back to the Change Position podcast. This is your host, Dr. Kevin Cuccaro, and I shouldn't say Ms.
It's okay.
Dr. Amazeballs herself. You're only Ms. in situations where it's not medically oriented.
And they don't need to know that I'm a doctor. Yeah.
When they don't need to know.
On a need-to-know basis.
Dr. Amazeballs, Melissa Katie. Dr. Katie, how are you today?
I'm good.
Good?
Laughing at everything. Laughing at myself, pretty much. But yeah. I'm trying to avoid stupidity.
Well, let's talk about avoiding stupidity. So this particular episode is titled "Avoiding Stupidity is Easier Than Seeking Brilliance," and I shamelessly stole this. And you can't copyright titles, so that's just the way it is. But I got this from a blog called Farnham Street, and Farnham Street is, I get the impression it's one of these things that the hedge fund people read a lot of. And this guy used to work in the finance industry and started writing these big old things. And what I like about it is it's a lot about thinking. You know, high level play, and particularly when you're looking at high level finance, is much more about the psychology than, say, the actual financial aspect to it. There's a psychology about money, and most importantly, there's a psychology of how you think. How do you make decisions? Because when you're executing something and it is, results in trading multi-millions of dollars, if you are not making good decisions, you may pull the trigger at wrong times, and you may be persuaded by evidence that perhaps shouldn't persuade you, and execute a trade that actually can cost you literally millions and millions of dollars. Mm-hmm. So I find it really interesting is how if you kind of read some of the stuff that they're writing and the thinking that they really refocus on the psychology, and particularly as it's relevant to you and how you make decisions. So I subscribe to their blog, and I'm going to, since we stole their title, I'm going to encourage you guys to do it. It's Farnham Street. It's a free newsletter, and they have some other little things that they kind of sell here and there, some classes on thinking and stuff like that. But this particular one, when it came in my email, really, really struck me. Again, the title being "Avoiding Stupidity is Easier Than Seeking Brilliance," and it comes down to the differences between professionals and amateurs. And the beginning, they talk about some of these books about one of them being Extraordinary Tennis, Ordinary Players. And in this, the author kind of distinguished between the professional tennis players and then the recreational tennis players. Mm-hmm. And those are completely different games. Now, people may think, well, yeah, of course, they're professional and I'm an amateur. Well, yes, but if you look at how the games are won, that's really what they're referring to. And what they're referring to is that the professionals is, they're playing into a standpoint, and they're actually looking for somebody else to make an error so that they can capitalize on. Amateurs are very different, though. Amateurs is basically someone will make an error because they're amateurs, and they're going to do it soon. So the game then, if you are an amateur tennis player and you want to beat all your friends, is not to focus on trying to do the killer serve or to beat the point, is to not make the error. Because the longer that you play error free, the more likely your opponent is going to make an error. And because they make an error, you're going to score a point. The relevance for this outside of the game of tennis, which I do not play at all, is the fact that most of what we do in life, oftentimes, is we assume that we are professionals, when in reality, most of us are amateurs. This specifically, when I was reading this, I was thinking about in the financial standpoint, right? So I subscribe to a lot of blogs that you probably do the same time. In their physician space, there's a huge thing with FIRE. We had Leaf on. Leaf's awesome, and he has a fantastic blog, Physician on FIRE, if you guys are interested on that. Really, really good stuff. But I'm in the forums as well. People are debating and talking and this and that, and they're always trying to find this edge. Ooh, I want to invest in crypto, and I'm going to put all my money in crypto. I'm going to make $1 million. Well, unless you are a total technophile, and maybe that you have been born and bred and are in the crypto space and completely understand blockchain technology and understand the implications for it and the potential growth potential that it has, that's the loser game, or I should say that's the amateur one. You are playing like a professional when you're an amateur in there. And you are more likely then to make significant mistakes with your financial future that you don't need to do. If you appreciate then that you are the amateur, you then play not to lose. Well, how do you not lose? You don't go with the high-priced financial advisors, which I'm always astounded in the physician groups. There's a group, which I'm not going to say because who knows what will come after you. But every week there's somebody, hey, this person came to my residency group and they want to sell me all this crap. And it just makes me want to vomit. You know, these people are salespeople. They're not there looking out your best interest. It isn't finding, you know, the swampland out in the middle of nowhere that somehow that's going to, you know, unless you have insider information that there is a contract that is going to develop a multi-million-dollar high rise on, and somehow you're getting insider information on that, which I do think is kind of illegal. I think there's that whole insider trading thing, but I don't know. The fact of the matter is, when it comes to your basic finances and like the 90%, the stuff that you need to actually take control of your financial future, you want to not make errors. So we've talked about in the past, that comes down to doing things like, well, if the markets are naturally sort of efficient and there's stocks that go up and down, index investing makes more sense than trying to pick individual standpoint or individual stocks. People say, well, I picked this stock and it went up to whatever. You probably got lucky. You know, realistically, you probably got lucky, or you're in a market where everything's going up, like it has been for a number of years now.
Yep.
I don't know. Does that sort of make sense to you so far? But what I'm talking about is there's different perspectives. Really, the big one being is everybody thinks that they're professional or wants to think like a professional, but most of them are amateurs.
Yep.
And that's a very different game to be playing.
Yeah, well, it made me think on three different levels. Not just like you mentioned, some like stocks and things like that, or crypto. And, you know, I see it around me all the time that, you know, they've been exposed to this opportunity, think they're in the know, and they just go for it in a very naive kind of non-expert approach. And you're talking about the psychology and how that plays into so much of this. And it's amazing how emotions run rampant in some of this, where there's this excitement and their worry, anxiety, and like they trade this and it's like they don't play the long game, and it's the short game, and they're like riding this crazy roller coaster. That's one level of sometimes stupidity I see, but also from a individual level in life, just as you know, all these lessons we learn along the way. There's some of us that kind of, you know, make the errors and make some stupid choices in life versus like learning from the people around us. If we had that awareness and willingness to learn from humans about the choices we're making, many of us, myself included, may have made better choices. And then also from a community global level, from history, learning from history, and avoiding the stupidity that currently exists in this day and age. If we would learn from our past and from human civilization, we actually might create a better society. But you know, those are the first things that came to mind. Would you say those relate?
Yeah, I know you made me think of, I wish I could remember the quote on it. Where it basically is you're always going to learn, like throughout your life, you're going to learn something. The question is, are you going to learn it for yourself painfully, or are you going to learn it from others, you know,
Yes.
gainfully?
Yeah,
you know,
I like
in personal experiences that's probably the most meaningful learning, but there are some things you can accelerate certainly by learning from somebody else.
Mm-hmm. It's funny
yes.
how that stick with you if you learn it on your own.
Well, in the fact that you know, that being able to learn and this relates though back to this awareness standpoint, is just being cognizant of where and who you are is so key to this. Like recognizing whether or not you are an expert and being able to say, yo, I'm not an expert in this, or at least to yourself, is huge. And being able to rather than saying, I know this for a fact. Most of us don't know what we think we know. And if you're not willing to actually state that, you're a huge risk of errors beginning to take place. When Oh, did I interrupt you there?
No, go ahead.
Oh.
No, I think there's just a lot to learn from other people and our past and history to avoid the stupidity. So you're not such a naive, I'm not saying that you're an expert just from learning from other people, but you can maybe at least avoid the errors of the past. I guess that's what I was trying to say.
Well, and if you want to avoid errors, that's probably the way that you want to do it.
Right.
Learn from other people's errors so that you don't make them yourself.
Right.
That's playing smart. And that's also that doesn't matter whether you are a true professional or a true amateur. You can always look at what people are doing and learn from learn from their errors so that you don't have to make them.
Right. Like in medicine.
Well, in medicine. Yeah, medicine too. Now, the other flip point of this, though, with between the difference in professional amateurs, and so we kind of related to this financial space, the health space is another one.
Mm-hmm.
Like there are people out there who are taking certain medications in this idea that that medication is going to prolong their life because there was maybe a rat study that demonstrated it, right? Mm-hmm. And some of these are chemotherapeutic agents, cancer kind of drugs. And I look at that again, where people are honing in, oh, if I take this, or I take these supplements, or I take this and it's going to magically fix my health, or I'm like, well, okay, are you an elite athlete? No. Well, why don't you focus on the big mistakes, and the big mistakes being things like move your body every day, lift something heavy, sleep, eat the right things that are going into your body, not too much of it, and addressing stress. I mean, there's not that complicated. And if you're just focusing, if you're, recognize that you are an amateur when it comes to your body, and most of us are because we're not Olympic athletes, mm-hmm. It isn't a fancy supplement. It's not listening to the guy on the podcast saying that you need to take this, this drug, or this other person saying that you need to go buy this and this is going to extend your life by half a year. It's like, do the simple things first, focus on those for basically ever, and not stress out and pursue these little teeny finite things if you're an amateur in that category.
Yeah, well, it reminds me of so this is how I see it. Micro changes. People are trying to make micro changes before they make the macro changes. Like go back to the blue zones conversation we had. Like some of the most, from a health standpoint, when you're looking at that, as far as not being stupid, none of us are perfect, but there's some major changes you can make in your life. Like you just said, moving, some basic requirements for overall health, but yet people are trying to micro manage these tiny little things that might have made a difference in the study for a rat, but they're completely ignoring the fact they're smoking. Like look at history and like the blue zones and the various like things that have really shown that really can prolong your life the most. Yeah, it's nice that we can research this and learn these things, but there are some macro changes that are probably more relevant and important than the micro changes. It made me think of a patient I had recently who his mom's very focused on worrying and anxious about a lot of things, but worried about the anesthesia. Granted, it's for cosmetic reasons. And they're talking about MTHFR, very functional medicine focused stuff. And I'm like, let me just tell you that the acute concerns of mine, it's not going to reach the anesthesia world for probably 20 or 30 years, what you're talking about right now. You can go detoxify yourself and do what you feel improves your health. You're tweaking wellness. I'm dealing with life and death stuff and like major concerns that, anesthesia and surgery, by the way, is like trauma. Like, can you endure that? So that's great. You can work on your wellness and optimize that outside of this, but we need to make sure you just optimize from a general health standpoint for enduring surgery and anesthesia. So it's great and all. You want to go do that little tweaking. The tweaking's not as relevant as the big stuff. So yeah, the avoiding stupidity stuff, like, don't drink 10 glasses of wine the night before surgery. Probably not a good idea. Yeah.
Well, I think you kind of summed up really well there is the difference between macro and micro.
Mhm.
And if you're so focused on these little micro things, like, hey, you're just starting to start to save for retirement, the micro decision, the little micro thing would be crypto, the macro would be index. It's like, optimize your macro, the big things in life first.
Mhm.
And once you've done that, you can focus on the micro, those little things. I love that, because that makes so much sense. And that's what professionals do.
Mhm.
Again, they are focusing on the fundamentals first,
Mhm.
and then they're exploiting or adding on to those little micro changes, which is the exact opposite of what the amateurs do, where they focus on these small, insignificant things that get lots of press and get lots of marketing, because, oh, whoa, my, the more I complexify something and make it seem all magical, the more I can sell it to you for. It's just crazy. And it comes back. Did you ever see that video with the rocks? Have you seen the rock what video? Or it's a rock story about the jar and the rocks.
Oh, as far as what you fill in first.
It's your life. I mean, really,
Yeah.
I mean, this is it's the same thing. It's the same thing when it comes to this. What the professional does is they put the big rocks in their game first.
Yep.
And then they add the small ones.
Yep.
And if you are not a professional, which most of us are not, put the big rocks in first, just like the professionals did before they focused on the small rocks.
Mhm.
And if you do that, you're going to be ahead of like 80+% of the population anyway. The big rocks, the big macro changes, and
Mhm.
whatever the category we're looking at, health, wealth, relationships, you're going to get the most bang for your buck, because those are the big rocks. So
Yep.
learn to see what the big rocks are and focus on those.
Mhm. I agree, 100%. You just made me think of it. I need a good picture of that, of the big rocks, the little marbles, and
In
whatever.
the sand and stuff, and
Yes. Yeah, I
but
love that.
I guess that's the problem with this. And I think this, again, maybe this really resonated to me reading this particular article, is that so often we focus on these little teeny shiny, bright, shiny objects,
Mhm.
but we miss the big rocks.
Yeah,
And if you
we need the forest. Look at the forest,
look
the
at the
trees,
forest.
whatever that quote is.
you don't see the forest for the trees, or you don't see the trees for the forest, or
Yeah, now I'm
whatever.
getting all backwards. You got to
All
pull
right.
back and see the big picture. That's what we're
That's
saying.
right.
Yeah.
Well, and most importantly is recognize, if you are an amateur, be aware that you are an amateur, and
Mhm.
do the big things first, and not focus on don't try to be the professional when you are not.
Yeah, try to avoid doing the stupid things, the big picture things. Avoid errors, especially in the financial world, by not seeing the big picture. So, yeah, I think that's a good place to tail off. What do you think?
I think so. I want to look
Are
at
any
these.
other points?
Well, I was looking at, there's a quote in here. I was wondering if it would be useful or not. Okay, so this was from a book. Says in a letter to Wesco shareholders from Charlie Munger, who Charlie Munger is Warren Buffett's business partner, and he's a thinker, man. Like,
Yeah.
We can do another episode on the flack he got for his thing, whether it was warranted or not, when he designed and was donating all this money to UC Santa Barbara. I actually looked at the plans. It looks pretty cool. But anyway, so in the book, it says, they're talking about Wesco, a particular company. So Wesco continues to try more to profit from always remembering the obvious than from grasping the esoteric. It is remarkable how much long-term advantage people like us have gotten by trying to be consistently not stupid instead of trying to be very intelligent. There must be some wisdom in the folk saying of, it's the strong swimmers who drowned. And I'm like, yeah, let's be not stupid. I should get a tattoo of that. The goal is to don't be not stupid, or don't be stupid.
Yeah.
Consistently not stupid. That's it. Consistently not stupid.
Swim gently. I don't know. So they're saying strong swimmers can drown. They're being a little too aggressive. Is that what they're saying?
Well, the strong swimmers who drown is they get overconfident in the situations that they're in, right? And when you are in the middle of the ocean, we're all amateurs at that point, and so people more likely, if you're think that the idea of that is you're more likely, if you think that you're a strong swimmer, to put yourself in a situation where you can't recover from.
More risky.
More risky.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So, swim with less risk, I guess, and recognize your limitations and make smart choices by not making stupid mistakes. There you go.
Be consistently not stupid. That's my goal in life.
Don't be stupid. That's how we're going to end it, folks.
My goal is to be consistently not stupid.
There you go. Yeah, I can put that as my, was it epitaph? What's the thing you put on your
gravestone?
Gravestone.
Yeah.
I try to not be consistently stupid.
My goal. All right, we're getting a little punchy here, but
yes, we are punchy. That's okay. Well, you want me to take us out?
Please take us out.
Well, I think the final thing about avoiding stupidity, don't be stupid. Try to be smart by not being stupid. I guess that really is just a redundancy there. But no, I think this is a reminder of, we can be, as physicians, pretty advanced in our understanding and knowledge. But to always remember the important things and not get down a rabbit hole and things that are maybe not as important or can lead us astray, whether we're making financial decisions or decisions for our own health or for the health of our patients. I think keeping that perspective is always important. So thanks for bringing up the conversation, Kevin.
Well, thanks for talking with me as always.
Yeah, most of the time on our Saturdays, we enjoy that. Well, thank you for joining us with the Change Physician in our episode 148, Avoiding Stupidity. We look forward to seeing you in the future episodes. Of course, there are plenty of other episodes recently that talk about knowledge in general. You should check those out. And if you don't know what the Change Physician is all about, you can go to changephysician.com and join us there, whether you're a physician or a physician ally. We'd love to see you there. You can join us on any of our podcasts, on just the audio version at any venue that you can probably think of. Feel free to subscribe, rate, or comment. And Instagram, you can find us there as well. So look for the Change Physician. I think the handle is The Changed PHYS, because they only let us have so many letters. And you can find us there. We release little trailers and posts to let you know what has come out recently. And feel free to comment there as well. So we look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Until then, take care.
Stay well, folks.